The doctor adopted 3 babies from a female prison, but when the woman who gave birth to them was finally released, she found both the babies and the doctor, and did something that moved everyone to tears. "What do we do now?" the doctor asked, looking at the present inquiries, except that the pregnancy was quite advanced. "Could there be complications?" his colleague grumbled irritably. "Who in our country could perform such an operation?" Barney, the chief medical officer of the infirmary, furrowed his brow. The gathered doctors averted their gaze. It wasn't as though they went to the women's colony to gain experience or improve their skills. This place was a refuge for those with nowhere else to turn in dire situations. Barney seemed completely out of place compared to the others in the infirmary. Elegant, with a straight and confident demeanor, he had expressive facial features, well-defined eyebrows, and deep, serious eyes. He always wore a perfectly white vest, which gave him credibility and respect. When Barney spoke, his voice was calm and convincing. He had a clear mind and always found the right arguments. He was also a good listener, despite his busy schedule. He remained friendly and attentive to his patients. He knew how to comfort and give hope for recovery. Therefore, no one understood what a man like him was doing in such a remote place. "I would have done it myself, but it's not my specialty," Barney murmured, fiddling with a pen in his hands. "Ideally, we should take the prisoner to a civilian hospital where a professional can take care of her. But, as usual, at the most critical moment, the only transport is out of service." The ambulance, at least minimally equipped to transport bedridden patients, was not functioning, and taking a pregnant woman in a regular car was risky. The maintenance officer hadn't taken care of the car in time, and there were no spare parts. "So, what are we going to do?" Sheldon's voice was heard. The director entered the infirmary, giving everyone a stern look. He was a tall and strong man. His oval face had wrinkles, but still retained strong features that showed a firm character. Sheldon never abandoned his black uniform, which highlighted his power and authority. "It's not our fault. Transport is always provided in these cases." "You made the rules yourself," Barney retorted. "Oh, I understand. We won't blame ourselves. If the prisoner can't be transported to the city, someone from the obstetrics or surgery department will come to her." "Do you think they'd do that?" Barney asked. "They don't have much of a choice." The news reached the city hospital and was not well received. The staff was already overburdened, the hallways were full, and now a specialist needed to be available for an entire day, disrupting public service. The chief doctor, irritated, asked, "Couldn't we have been informed earlier? She knew she couldn't handle it alone. Are these people outlaws? Should they have been kept near other patients all this time, or in a separate room with guards? And how do you propose performing a C-section in your facilities?" The doctor retorted to the chief. "We have rooms equipped with the necessary sterile and appropriate tools for such procedures. But we don't have specialists. Or could we do without you? Which doctor would agree to work in your institution?" The chief doctor responded, irritated. "During the operation, we will provide guards. I need an hour to coordinate," said the doctor. Sheldon responded, giving him only half an hour before disconnecting. "You tell me what to do," the doctor shouted over the phone. The director's manner of speaking irritated him. The direct employee didn't want to make concessions or think about the difficulties of others. It would be necessary not only to remove a specialist from their patients, but also to provide daily transport for special conditions. A single trip required so much bureaucracy that just thinking about it was exhausting. And God forbid, if anything happened, they would have to pay insurance for the injured. At that moment, the image of the detestable employee who had caused him many problems passed through the chief doctor's mind. The most problematic surgeon they had was the kind of person who could be put in this situation. He could either be useful or a disaster. If the fool got injured and went on medical leave, it would be great. And if he resigned after such an adventure, it would be a dream come true. The chief doctor sighed and smiled slightly. It would be great to teach this troublemaker a lesson. Even a car with a private driver could be arranged. "George, come here for a minute. I have an important task for you," he murmured, dialing the employee's number. "Yes, it's a very important task, and only you can do it." "Hello," said Sheldon. "Don't be condescending," the surgeon retorted. George, besides being an incompetent surgeon, was a short and bald man. He had short, thick arms covered in dark hair. He spoke carelessly and quickly, as if he feared his words would disappear if not said swiftly. His face didn't help either, always with a skeptical look, treating patients as if they weren't human. After his treatments, people often felt worse, and some even died due to side effects. "Here are your documents," Barney said dryly, extending a pile of forms. The city surgeon nervously took the documents, and as he read them, his lips tightened more and more until he finally dropped the papers back on the table and said, "Are you idiots? I was called to do a job, not perform a miracle with 2 chopsticks and a dull spoon." All because he had little experience. He was a relative of a wealthy businessman, and he only became recognized as a doctor later. Having bought a diploma, he was seen as a surgeon. In reality, he was just occupying a comfortable position, moving from department to department to receive double the salary. The woman's labor tests showed she had a low blood count. You didn't need to be a medical genius to understand how a poorly performed operation could end disastrously. "The chief doctor wants to get rid of me to make way for his nephew," George thought. If the girl dies on the operating table, the surgeon who performed the operation would be the first to be blamed. The clinic would take a hit to its reputation, but who would care about another prisoner's death? They'd apologize, hold a few fundraisers, and move on. "Do you want to find a scapegoat?" "No, thank you. I don't want to be part of this theater," George said. "So, should we wait for the problem to blow up in our faces?" Barney asked. "Call a helicopter and have her taken to the city hospital," George replied. "And the pain she's feeling right now?" Barney retorted. "Give her something." "What does it matter to me?" George responded, showing no empathy. "She's pregnant. Do you know what could happen to the fetus if you give her something strong?" Barney insisted. "What does it matter to me?" the surgeon repeated. Sheldon sighed, shocked by the city doctor's indifference. He was a cynical man and could be tough when necessary, but the surgeon's indifference was astonishing. Perhaps he could be pressured into doing his job, Sheldon thought. How long would that have taken? And if the prisoner died on the table, it would be a real emergency. A thorough inspection would inevitably follow, possibly blaming the director for criminal negligence. Who knows if the unit commander wouldn't decide that the director should be demoted to a lowly soldier and then dismissed. But first, the problem needed to be resolved. While the prisoner's life might not matter to society, issues involving pregnant women would certainly move the public. What to do? He leaned back indifferently in his chair. Barney sat at the table, thinking intensely. There was a deep silence in the room. Only the old ceiling lamp hummed softly. "There's a possibility," the chief doctor said reluctantly. "There's a small town not far from here, and a retired military doctor lives there. He's retired but still vigorous. He's not even 60 years old. A true professional of the old guard." "Yes, I heard something about him," said the director. "They say he saved many soldiers on the other side of the world and operated almost in a trench. He's not afraid of anything. I don't care if he's local," responded George, the city surgeon, dismissively. "He was very unpleasant." I heard he has a success rate of about 99%, Barney said quietly. Maybe he's the doctor, the director replied. Let's see if we can bring him here. Maybe he's been called. Seeing the car with the colony officials at the door, a medium-height man with silver hair and mustache approached. He had a slender build, an attractive and expressive face. His blue eyes radiated calm and confidence. Ross stood tall, always ready for action. His face carried a gentle smile that reflected his kindness and sensitivity. The man's appearance was a blend of austerity and delicacy. He still wore a military tunic adorned with stars on his chest. Despite his age, his clothes remained impeccable. As always, the military doctor carried a leather briefcase under his arm where he kept his documents and medical instruments. Can you help us? Barney asked. There are 4 lives at stake. We can't do this without you. But why not reminisce about the old times? Ross responded with a broad smile. It took just half an hour to reach the colony. Despite the poor roads, the driver did his best to bring the valuable specialist as quickly as possible. Upon arrival, the military doctor was immediately taken to the medical unit to change into clean clothes and was then sent directly to the infirmary. Let's see, Ross said upon seeing the woman in labor sitting on the bed. She was very young, but her time in the colony had left marks on her face. Her dark hair was disheveled, and her enormous belly indicated she was expecting 3 babies. She seemed to have exhausted her last bit of energy awaiting the surgery. Well, I haven't had to deliver a baby here before. War is different, but I think we can handle this, the military doctor said reassuringly. A slight smile appeared on Monica's lips, signaling that she was ready to fight to the end for her children. Ross took a moment to focus. War had taught him much. Here, in a civilian setting, a procedure like this didn't seem so daunting. With a sigh, Ross assessed what would be necessary for a C-section. Then, he clarified all the needed details with Barney and made a list of tools and equipment that needed to be prepared. He then briefly instructed the team on what needed to be done, ensuring everything was ready under his command. Ross nodded and ordered the team to prepare Monica for the procedure. All right, my dear, we will do this calmly, he said, gently touching the expectant mother's hand. Yes, she replied weakly. Perfect, said the military doctor. His smile conveyed a sense of calm and reassurance, so necessary at that moment. Let's begin. Ross, slowly but confidently, started the procedure, consulting with the other doctors at each step. The process was not quick, but in the end, all 3 babies were born without complications. It was a bit awkward. For the first time, the military doctor conducted all the necessary examinations, ensuring that the babies were completely healthy. Only then did he announce the end of the operation. Congratulations, Mom. You now have 3 healthy babies. Ross smiled. Thank you, she sighed, finally managing to relax and fall into a deep sleep. She needed time to regain her strength. You're a true hero, Barney said as he met the military doctor at the exit of the room. I'm just doing my job, the man responded with a shrug. What do you have there? Barney asked. Some things from the analyst, the hospital chief replied, showing a transparent bag. At the bottom of the bag, a large golden cross glimmered. The doctor looked closely and was astonished. The decoration was clearly handcrafted, with a beautiful pattern visible even through the bag. A rare piece, and Ross was certain he had seen it before on someone else. Is everything all right? Barney asked, surprised by the director's reaction. Yes, of course. He's in his office. Walking down the corridor, the military doctor found the right door, which was open. The interior was clearly visible, reflecting the owner's state of mind. The walls were painted in calming tones, and the furniture, though rustic, seemed sturdy and practical. Piles of books and documents were scattered on a large desk. and a shelf on the opposite side was filled with heavy files. "May I come in?" Ross asked after a brief knock. "Yes, of course, our savior. Welcome. Come in." The director stood up from his desk. "I just wanted to inform you that the patient is doing well. I've given your team recommendations for her rehabilitation. She's young. She'll recover. We will do our best work possible." "Thank you for your help, Sheldon," the director said, shaking the doctor's hand. "If there's anything we can do to show our gratitude—" "It's not necessary," Ross interrupted. "I took an oath, after all. Tell me, what will happen to the babies?" "Normally, while the mother serves her sentence, the babies will be sent to a home. Monica has a good chance of parole. If she wants, she can keep them afterwards." "And if someone adopts them first?" Sheldon raised his hands in resignation. "We can't prevent that. You know, perhaps it's better this way. Why would the children need a single mother with so much free time?" Ross didn't respond, lost in his thoughts. The director didn't push, giving the visitor time to reflect. "Tell me, can I take the children as their guardian?" "Don't worry. My wife and I have a good life. We own a farm, cattle, everything. We'll feed the little ones. It's better than relying on the government." Ross raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Why do you want that at your age? They're not small. How old are you? 50? 60? Why do you need 3 children?" "I'm not taking them away from her. When the mother gets out of prison, I'll return them to her custody." "That's not how it works. But if it doesn't bother you and you just want to take care of them, who's stopping you? For God's sake, just do the paperwork like everyone else. Once the guardianship is sorted, you can take them," Ross said with a nod. "I'd appreciate it if someone could give me a ride to the small town. I've probably lost all the oil on my way here." The military doctor carefully hung the bag on a nail and began to wash his hands. Memories of a glorious past reflected before his eyes. Just a few years ago, in a time that felt both so close and yet so distant, an old comrade from the front lines had died in his arms, weighed down by his worries. Around his neck hung the same crucifix, crudely made. But how could such a relic end up with a woman in labor? Simply impossible. The body of his old friend, along with the crucifix, had been sent back home to be buried with dignity in the family plot at the cemetery. There was no one to remove the crucifix. Who would want to steal from a fallen soldier? Everyone respected that man, and Ross owed him his life. After all, he had rescued the military doctor during a bombardment. "How are things going?" Phoebe approached. She was a tall and robust hostess with an exuberant figure. Her expressive and sharp facial features showed a confident woman. Her voice was always deep, beautiful, and calm. She was attractive, strong, and irresistible, much like her husband, with whom she had lived in perfect harmony for many years. So, that was it. The military doctor finished his story. He told his wife everything about the girls, the crucifix, and his intention to obtain guardianship. She agreed without asking many questions. No discussion was necessary. The couple had no children. Perhaps now they could do a good deed. "I just need to talk to this Monica after the surgery. She lost consciousness immediately, and then they took me home. I couldn't wait there for days." He still wondered how the woman in labor had obtained the crucifix. It couldn't have been a coincidence. Time passed. Gathering all the necessary documents took much more effort than initially thought. The guardianship reluctantly trusted the man. At least his old connections helped. Yes, excellent credentials from all places of service. In the end, Ross was granted the necessary permissions, and he went directly to the juvenile reformatory. "Welcome." The director nodded respectfully when he saw the stack of signed forms. "I apologize for last time. I said things. I really respect you. You're a man of your word. And now I see you're serious. It's nothing. Just give the order to prepare the girls for adoption." The military doctor signed. "And one more thing. I'd like to see their mother. How is she?" "She's fine, recovering and already working again. In a few minutes you can go to the conference room." The assistant led him to a separate room. The room was simply furnished, just a table and 2 chairs with no other furniture. The small window was firmly closed and a dim lamp hung from the ceiling. "Hello," Monica spoke softly as the guards led her into the room. "Hello, young lady." Ross smiled. She hesitated at the entrance as if afraid to approach. "Don't be shy. Sit down. Sheldon said we can talk for as long as we need to." "What do you want to talk about?" the prisoner asked, approaching the table timidly. "But first, how did you end up here?" It became clear that Monica had been imprisoned for something foolish, and it wasn't even her fault. She was a waitress. She lived a modest life, but was generally content. Honest work, a small apartment, but it was hers. But one day, a rich man started to harass her. At first, it was just courtship, flowers, and gifts. But Monica soon realized his intentions. Of course, the spoiled rich man wasn't used to being rejected. And when the girl rejected him again, he decided to take revenge. The life Monica had painstakingly built was ruined. After a dinner at the restaurant, the rich man accused Monica of theft, and management immediately sided with him to avoid scandal. The poor girl was not only fired but also arrested. The restaurant owner ignored the fact that the wallet was blatantly planted in her locker. She became pregnant there, trusting a colleague. He courted her, saying sweet things. And then, when everything happened, it was discovered that he was married. He deceived her, took advantage of her naivety, and she fell into the trap like a fool. Sadly, Monica sighed. "Really? Was he punished?" Ross asked. "No, he wasn't. As soon as he found out I was pregnant, he immediately moved to another colony. I think he went to the other side of the country so his wife wouldn't find out. I don't have any luck with men, or I just don't know how to choose. I don't know what to say." They fell silent for a moment. It's never easy to remember the past. But Ross couldn't let go of the mystery of the cross. Grateful to her savior, Monica told him everything without holding back. "You know, I feel you wouldn't question me without a reason," Monica said. "But how did you get that cross?" the military doctor asked. "I don't know," Monica shrugged. "I grew up in an orphanage. I've had it since I was born. I'm surprised no one stole it." "I don't think so," Ross murmured. The situation was still confusing. "How much longer do you have on your sentence?" "Not much, especially since I'm entitled to parole for being a mother of many children. I'll be free soon." "Don't worry. When they are released, they'll be under my guardianship. I will take care of them." "Really?" Monica exclaimed in surprise. "Yes. Everything is set. I'll take them today." "Thank you. I was so worried about them. They are just babies, and I don't have milk. No one in the colony would buy powdered milk for them. I'll send you a letter and money for the trip. There's a direct bus to the small town." "Thank you. I'll repay you for the expenses. I'll work for it." "Don't worry. Not everything is measured in money. Strangely, you remind me of someone. That's why I'm helping. I owe him a debt," the doctor said, remembering his fallen comrade. "Thank you, anyway." Everything went as Ross had planned. Monica was freed, and he picked up the girls from the orphanage without any issues. The girls immediately warmed to Ross, as if they were his own. Phoebe was also thrilled with the new additions to their family. She had always dreamed of having children. At the doctor's request, Sheldon facilitated Monica's parole, and in less than a year she finished serving her sentence. "Hello?" She knew from the letters that the girls were fine. The military doctor even sent some photos of the little ones, who looked happy and comfortable in their new home. Now, the young mother could finally see them in person. After all, Phoebe insisted that she live with them for a while until she got back on her feet. "I don't want to impose. You've done so much already," Monica said, carrying her few belongings as she was arrested at the restaurant. They didn't let her take anything. "Don't say such things. Everything is ready for the baby's arrival, and we are already like family. We won't send their mother out on the street," Ross said seriously. They waited for the bus and settled into their seats. The driver accepted the fare, eyeing the ex-prisoner sideways. Everyone knew that if a stranger boarded at that point, she had likely just been released from the penal colony. It was easy to identify someone recently freed. They still bore the fear of the strict guards. "Hello, Ross," a female voice called out, and the military doctor turned to greet his neighbor, returning from the city market with bags full of goods. She was an elderly woman who always acted with modesty and had short, graying hair. Of medium height, her face was covered with fine wrinkles. She was simple and sturdy. After all, Eleanor was considered the leader of the small town. This title held no practical power, but if someone wanted to know the latest news or solve a problem, for some reason, they would seek her out first. "Hello, how are you?" "I'm fine. Just went to the city." "And this young lady?" She glanced at Monica. The sharp eye of the town's leader immediately identified the ex-prisoner. Now, she was eager to know more. What was the relationship between the military doctor and the young criminal? "I met a friend. She came to visit us," Ross said. He didn't seem embarrassed by his guest. "Can't you see she's uncomfortable?" "We'll talk later," Ross cut in. But from the woman's look, it was evident that the neighborhood wouldn't be pleased. What if she was a thief? Or worse? However, the doctor's stern look made the woman hold her tongue. After all, Ross was a respected man who had often helped his fellow villagers. After waiting, the bus finally arrived in the small town. The town's leader walked quietly to her home. Ignoring the gossiping elder, Ross took Monica to the new house. "This is my wife, Phoebe," he said, introducing them. "It's a pleasure to meet you. Come in." "Don't be shy. We'll have lunch soon." Phoebe began to bustle about immediately. "I'm not hungry. Please don't trouble yourself," Monica responded timidly. "We've been on the road for a long time, and I bet you miss home-cooked food." While the meal was warming, Monica anxiously went to the room. Seeing her babies, she worried they wouldn't recognize her, but they smiled brightly, as if no time had passed. "Hello, my loves," she said, relieved. "They started walking right away," Ross commented. Indeed, Monica was excited to start a new life in a quiet and peaceful place. A new opportunity seemed to be awaiting her. Finally, she could free herself from the past. Ross's house was large, and the owners warmly welcomed the young mother and her children. Monica, being modest, hard-working, and intelligent, quickly began to adapt, helping Phoebe with household chores and searching for a job. However, it wasn't easy. No one wanted to hire an ex-prisoner, especially with a reputation as a thief. She tried to explain the truth to potential employers, but no one listened. Over time, Monica noticed that the neighbors whispered behind her back. At first, she thought they just distrusted outsiders, but soon she discovered that everyone was talking about her conviction and considered her an imposter, avoiding any contact with her. Even after serving her sentence for a crime she didn't commit, It seemed she would have to carry that reputation for the rest of her life. Why couldn't she get a fresh start? She tried to befriend the neighbors and follow all the rules, but the villagers remained distant. "There she goes again," said Eleanor, eyeing her with disdain. "What a character, I tell you," commented a friend. Hearing the rumors, the doctor asked, "What's all this about?" He was working near his home, behind the fence where there was a bench he often shared with the town leader. "Why accept a thief here? And with children, no less. She must be some kind of scammer. And Phoebe influenced you to take her in. This woman doesn't work. She just wanders back and forth," said Eleanor. "Don't talk like that," Ross snapped. Eleanor's friend fell silent, not wanting to argue with the only doctor in the small town. But Eleanor continued, "Are you sure she isn't deceiving you? Today she has your trust. Tomorrow she'll take advantage of you and do something bad." "Don't say such things," Ross interrupted. "Monica is an honest girl who just had some bad luck in life." "You're the only one who understands," said Eleanor, breathing indignantly. But the military doctor had no intention of continuing the discussion, ignoring the gossipy woman. He went into his house, not wanting to hear more. The man was quite sure of his decision and never regretted deciding to help the unfortunate woman. However, the argument with the town leaders wasn't in vain. The villagers gradually started to ostracize her. When they saw her, they blamed her for missing items and simply ignored her. Eleanor, feeling insulted, constantly spread rumors which quickly became a hot topic in the small town. Monica, feeling all this pressure, grew sadder each day. Life wasn't easy for her. The apartment she had received from the orphanage had been resold in the United States. Her only refuge was Ross's house. If it weren't for the girls, she might have left, but the idea of moving to an unknown place with 3 little ones was terrifying. The military doctor was also uneasy. Seeing Monica's suffering, he tried to support her in every way, advising her to ignore the rumors. But he knew his words had little effect on the situation. He tried to talk to the villagers, but this only intensified their hostility toward Monica. Finally, after another episode of hostility, Monica, with tears in her eyes, decided to flee, leaving everything behind. Without saying anything to the owners, she left. It was unbearable for her to stay in the small town. Fleeing with the girls wasn't easy, but she moved forward under the suspicious eyes of the villagers. "She's leaving, isn't she?" Eleanor shouted, seeing Monica's bags with accumulated frustration. "What did I ever do to you? Why such hostility towards me?" Monica asked. Eleanor responded, "People like you will never have anything good in life. You even turned our doctor against us. You should have stayed in your own town." Monica opened her mouth to respond, but realized it wasn't worth arguing with Eleanor. She knew the woman would never understand, no matter how much she tried to explain. Monica just sighed and went on her way. However, as she reached the road, her spirits lifted. People were ready to criticize her, but that shouldn't stop her. She reached a bus stop. After about half an hour, an expensive car approached. Remembering her past with a rich man, Monica hesitated, but with her children crying, she signaled for the car. "Hello, can you give me a ride to the city?" she asked the driver, an attractive man. "Sure, get in," he replied with a smile. "I have children and not much money," she said, searching her bag. A necklace with a crucifix slipped from her chest. "Oops," said Monica, adjusting the crucifix. But the rich man interrupted her, staring fixedly at the crucifix and showing an identical one around his neck. "Where did you get that?" he asked. Monica replied, "I believe my mother gave it to me before leaving me at the orphanage. I don't know why, but I like to believe she had no other choice." "I see," said Monica, wrinkling her nose, and for some reason, she began to tell her own story. The driver opened the door for her, and as she settled into the car, he listened attentively, enjoying the warmth. The children fell asleep immediately. She explained how she ended up in prison, got pregnant, and then met Ross. She wanted to start a new life but couldn't settle in the small town. Monica didn't know why she was telling everything to the first man she met. Apparently, the accumulated sadness needed an outlet, and the man was a good listener. "Where are we going now?" he asked. "I don't know, but I can't stay there anymore," Monica concluded. "Then let's not take a detour. Let's go to your doctor. I want to discuss something with him." It was hard to go back to the small town, but Chandler insisted. The children were tired, and escaping without a destination no longer seemed so tempting. After all, what would she do in the city? No job, no housing. Money was scarce, and she had 3 babies to care for. They went straight to Ross's house. The doctor and Phoebe immediately ran out, looking suspiciously at Chandler. "Hello?" Chandler greeted. "I brought her back, and I have another question." Carefully, Chandler showed a crucifix that hung over his shirt. The doctor's eyebrows rose and his expression softened. A crucifix with a young mother, but a second crucifix with a stranger found on the road. Could such coincidences exist? "How did you get it?" Ross asked. "It's a long story," Chandler replied. "Come in, everyone," said Phoebe, taking the initiative. She gathered up the children and called Monica, indicating for Chandler to enter. But Eleanor's irritated voice could be heard. Watching the scene from her porch, Monica's return didn't please her. The sight of the luxurious car piqued her curiosity and envy. Everyone gathered in the living room. Phoebe took care of the guests, serving hot tea. Chandler observed the humble house, everyone in silence. The doctor tapped to get their attention. "The first time I saw a crucifix like that was with a comrade on the front lines," he began. Chandler listened attentively to Ross's story, but when the doctor mentioned the death of a friend, it seemed like Chandler was hiding a secret hope that ultimately didn't materialize. After hearing the host, he sighed and clutched the crucifix again. "The story, as I said, is long and confusing. Even I don't fully understand it." Hesitating on how to start, he said, "There were 3 of us, me, my older brother Leonard, and our sister Rachel. When we were very young, we were left in an orphanage." Chandler began to recount how difficult those early years were. The doctor's battlefield friend and Monica's mother were revealed to be Chandler's siblings, whose parents had abandoned them. But before that, they had given them crucifixes, custom-made by the best craftsmen in the city. "We lived in the orphanage for several years, but then there was a fire. Almost all the documents were burned and all the children were hurriedly dispersed. We all ended up in different parts of the country. The crucifixes remained as a reminder that we once had a family," Chandler said sadly. The wealthy man firmly believed that the crucifixes were given to them for a reason. Their parents had specially commissioned them as a farewell gift so that the children could always find each other. He had never forgotten and kept the crucifix. Once he achieved a good position in life, he began searching for clues about his lost family. But much time had passed. The children grew up and were separated. However, Chandler managed to find the retired craftsman, now deceased, who had once made the jewelry. The son of the retired craftsman found the wealthy man and told him about the secret of the crucifixes. It was discovered that our father had commissioned the crucifixes in memory of his wife, our mother, who died during childbirth. He did not want to abandon us. He loved us with all his heart, but he was forced to flee abroad, hiding from the authorities' persecution. It was a complex story. Our family was wealthy, and someone had anonymously reported us. At that time, the authorities acted quickly, taking immediate measures. Chandler recounted the story of his family with sincere sadness in his voice. It was clear he had never been able to move past the loss, always hoping to restore at least part of his family's legacy. It was a shame that so much time had passed. The older brother, as Ross had recounted, was dead, and Monica's sister was also missing. "So it seems that of the entire family, you are the only one I have left," said the wealthy man, smiling sadly, holding Monica's hand. "Everything has fallen into place now. Is there room for me in this house? Don't worry. I'll provide everything you need and make sure no one harms you," he assured. "Don't be silly," Monica responded, embarrassed. "And at least let me, in my old age, be with my family. I never had a wife or children. I never knew my niece, and now she will be my only blood descendant." "How will we share the grandchildren?" asked Phoebe from the kitchen. "They are like family to us now, too. Come visit us any time. In the summer, we'll send them to the city to enjoy nature," she added with a smile. Chandler's face softened at these words. He gave the impression of being understanding and gentle, entrusting the beloved children to their care. In the end, everything truly fell into place. Gathering her simple belongings, Monica left for the city with her uncle. Fortunately, he lived nearby. The wealthy man deeply loved his niece and her children, taking care of them and providing everything they needed through his connections. The man discovered that Monica had been framed at the restaurant and forced the culprit to confess what he had done. Although the past couldn't be undone, at least the good name of the family was cleared of the stigma that the poor girl didn't deserve in any way. Life was beginning to reorganize itself. "It's been a long time since the last visit," said Phoebe, looking out the window. "It was just last week," Ross retorted. "Do you think it's easy going back and forth with 3 little girls?" "I understand your sentiments. I wouldn't let them go anywhere," his wife sighed. "You're very caring, even if it doesn't always show." The man smiled. "Everything is fine with us. Don't be greedy," Ross said. He was indescribably happy to have his family close, and even happier to be able to help an old friend from the front line whose niece had saved him, even if he had found her by chance after all these years. One day, Monica went for a walk with the little ones in the park near their home. They lived in a very pleasant green neighborhood that was fenced off thanks to Chandler's efforts. The wealthy man had always dreamed that his descendants would walk the streets he had helped create with his own hands. Monica tried to leave the house more often to spend peaceful and relaxing moments with her children outdoors, quickly getting used to the countryside. She could no longer live without the birds' songs and the flowers' aromas. At the same time, a young man stopped in the park for his lunch break, choosing a common bench in the shade of the trees. He had seen her several times before and began to take an interest in the beautiful stranger. She seemed pleasant in a peculiar way, different from all the other people in the park, probably very kind and friendly in this city, so focused on money. Their paths strangely crossed when Monica, pushing a stroller in front of her with the 3 children, approached the bench, looking at the ground covered with leaves. "Hello," Ted said, smiling. Monica was slightly startled, surprised by the attention, but decided to respond with the same friendly smile. "Hello, how are you?" It wasn't the first time she had noticed the handsome young man who worked in a nearby office. He seemed young, energetic, of medium height. His clean and cheerful face gave him an almost youthful appearance, in the good sense of the word. There was a subtlety in his green eyes, and his smile drew the attention of those nearby. Ted stood out from the others with his black, always well-groomed hair. His office attire, consisting of a shirt and dark pants, complemented his image favorably, making him even more attractive. From time to time, Monica caught the young man's eyes and responded with slight smiles. She began to think more and more about how reliable and friendly this man might be. "Would you keep me company? I'm tired of eating alone." Ted pointed to his sandwiches and a cup of coffee. "We are many, and sometimes we can even be noisy." Monica smiled lovingly, looking at her little ones. "It's fine. Children are the flowers of life," he replied. She sat on the bench, and they started talking about various topics, feeling a mutual sympathy. Monica talked about her life with her children, and Ted shared about his job and hobbies. Nearly an hour passed. "Unfortunately, I have to go. I hope to see you tomorrow," Ted said, standing up. "It was a pleasure to meet you." They said goodbye, and the young mother returned home feeling that the casual conversation had awakened a long-forgotten feeling in her soul. She didn't want to part from Ted, so she decided to meet him at the same time the next day, and their walks continued for several weeks, until finally Ted invited her on a real date. They agreed to meet the following week at a cozy restaurant near her uncle's new house. "Before things get serious, I want you to know that I have children, and I will never abandon them no matter what," Monica warned. "I told you before, children are the flowers of life. How could I not love someone as special as you?" Ted replied. In the end, Monica began to feel that her unexpected companion was the person who truly understood her. He shared her thoughts and feelings. Ted, in turn, was happy to finally find a sincere woman, not obsessed only with material things. He was genuinely happy, and even came to love her lively children, with whom the young mother was practically inseparable. Thus, their love began. Things started to improve gradually. Monica and Ted's life was filled with bright colors, smiles, and comfort. They lived each day enjoying each other's company, no longer thinking about the past and without fear of the future, living happily ever after. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please like, comment, and share. Thank you for watching.